The Moments and the Now. Written by Carlos Pacheco, www.diaryofthoughts.com. There were always two times of day that interfered in my spirit, namely the daybreak and the dawn. I believe it depends on each person to feel it their way, but finally, there is a moment of the day that fits each one of us as we're all connected with nature and its cycle. Depending on that connection, people feel it and interpret it in different ways, mostly capturing that essence of life and going along with it. I have this friend from school that used to tell me that we have to act and adapt to the 4 seasons as a way of survival. This statement is a perfect definition of how important it is to integrate with nature and feel alive at the same time, not only breathing but making part of this whole that surrounds us, our tabernacle. There are no lost moments as they are present on space and time. They'll always be as their image will stay engraved in the universe as unique they are, making its history, completing its complexity with all the fragments of time. All those moments imply the past and the present. The present is presented by images that we constantly absorb and interpret and which makes us react on the spot, making the now. The now is nothing but what our eyes can capture. As everything and everybody are linked without noticing it, our moments are connected and interdependent. On a larger scale, everything we do and say is projected into infinity and will define later on our evolution as human species. The moment and the now are fundamental as they are the living proof of our existence, still related with the past and with the future. The now is a final result of the past experiences, mostly from the learning that we accumulated, and the future is dependent on the decisions we make now. The past is static as it's gone, but the now is always changing. If not, then we'd be dying and not living. The future is a reflection of the now, and this last one will belong automatically and systematically to the past in fragments of seconds. By measuring time, we are examining and interpreting the moments that the now represents in the middle of the past and the future, and trying to make the best out of it. The now is what we are while waking up and having the consciousness that we are alive, the instant that we are reasoning and feeling all the vibrations brought by nature, brought by life. The now is essential in our lives as it reflects our understanding of the past by not committing the same mistakes and being able to evolve and build our future under the result of those conclusions. Moments are also made of memories that bring us back to the past. A way to travel in time. They are made of dreams, making us imagine our future and allowing us to plan our lives according to our goals. Therefore, the past and the future are constant elements that are present on our now. The now is where everything begins as we are constantly changing and adapting to the moments of our lives. The now makes part of the moments as an element that acts as a constant regenerator of those segments of time. The now is the moment when we feel what is real in our spirits, in our minds. It can bring us joy or pain, bring us illusions that are nothing but living moments existing in our souls. This means that moments have their dynamics. They are alive and expressing themselves in different ways. Feelings are brought by moments of happiness and sadness. How many times we create our moments when we wish that the ones we love the most would be with us. While creating those moments, we are living them at the same time. We are kissing the ones we love and giving them all our tenderness and affection even if it's not real. They are still there alive in our minds and our hearts. Nobody will be able to take our moments away. We always want to forget our bad moments and repeat the good ones, making them last forever if possible. How many times I put a music title on repeat just to stay in that state of mind and extend those moments as long as possible. Music is related with moments of our lives, and they have a meaning as everything else. We can relive certain contexts of our existence while listening to music, which means that there are no lost moments. Some years ago, I had this friend of mine that used to tell me that he wouldn't have any problems in his life as he had planned everything. Son of a wealthy family, he was convinced that life would maintain itself static and everything would obey to what was going on in his personal planning. At that moment, I had to try to explain to him that no matter how he would make plans, events would override that intention, and he would have simply to adapt. I learned from another dear friend of mine that for every problem there is a solution, and that's precisely the message I gave him, trying to minimize his fears that he couldn't disguise while explaining his theory about planning everything to avoid an eventual problem. Some years after having this conversation, I assisted to a complete change in his life as he became divorced and dependent on alcohol, finally ruining friendship with old friends and staying unemployed due to that context. The last time we met, he told me that he was sorry that he didn't listen to me and also mentioned that he was living day by day and making the best of it. I hugged this old friend and told him that I would always be there for him, the same way he had been there for me, as true friendship is stronger than the rest. The now is our reality, though it is useless to stay caught by our past except to use the positive conclusions that help us correct our attitude before life to step ahead and build our future. I had a professional formation about organization and methods, but I also learned that I always had to adapt to new contexts that obliged me to change all those procedures completely, still maintaining the same logical structure that is so necessary to attain profitability in our work. At a personal level, we all live in the now, and this one represents the moment of our lives. But as time is linked with the past and the future, our actions and attitudes will be reflected in our personal history, our matrix. I define it as the responsibility of the moment that makes part of our daily existence. The actual social, economical, and political contexts in society are the result of the lack of responsibility of the moment, while our leaders forget about our future due to their practice and policy of greed, power, and corruption. I heard that economics manages the whole world, and making part of the list of the first 100 rulers are 49 countries and 51 corporations, which translates the reality we are living in and meaning that mere figures express everything. I sincerely hope that it's not the case. In fact, those leaders are taking care of life, managing the moment, and that implies a great responsibility, the one that is implied on their mission, the reason why they occupy that position in the first place. It also lays on the people to choose the right leaders, but to do that we would have the opportunity to be necessarily educated and conscious about it. Allied to the word responsibility, there is also another one, which is common sense, and this last one is absent from the practice of managing society in a proper way. Leaders forgot to include the spiritual element in their decisions, and by doing that they ignored that their knowledge, their power was brought by our spiritual world. The spiritual world is everything, yet being invisible but establishing the connection between this materialistic dimension and the absent one. The word absent is not even real because we are constantly connected with it without knowing it. The spiritual world that brought us knowledge also expected from us that we would use it in a positive and constructive way, which is not the case. We always needed leaders to follow, and there was always those who were elected to accomplish that mission. In spiritual terms, we need a leader, and need a personal Jesus to lead us on and surmount this battle called life. But this strictly lays on our faith, the one that brings us the light we all need. After all, we are dependent on our moments, which is one more reason to make the best of them, avoiding measuring time and simply profiting each minute of our existence. Some people do, others just waste them while choosing the wrong road, the one that avoids that they'll enjoy their moments. Life is made of moments, but she also has her law. Human beings always contradicted the laws of nature, forgetting that in the end, she will eternally regenerate while we are limited to our time, our moments. By opposing that law, we are only walking towards disaster. We'll never be able to stop or change the universal motion, and this is one fundamental reason why we have to respect it while preserving it. While young, we think that we are eternal or we have an eternity of time ahead of us, and that idea makes us survive and overcome the obstacles and difficulties of life. We start measuring time, measuring our moments when we get older, and at the same time we start reacting differently. That change is nothing but a natural process of nature extended to the human mind to assimilate the significance of the past moments and the importance of the present ones. With age, we start to appreciate the small things in life in a very different way, and while walking towards our final destination, we consolidate our personal thoughts, and we gradually prepare ourselves to accept that one day we have to join our ancestors. On my last anniversary and celebrating my 62 years of existence, I experienced this feeling of reassurance about my beliefs and convictions that lived all along my life, deep inside of me and sometimes being asleep, but that with time and age became more accurate and manifested themselves. After an amazingly comfortable day in the company of a dear friend of mine, I went to the computer and checked my messages on Facebook, and I almost couldn't believe what I was reading. Numerous messages of birthday greetings along with words of friendship from people that follow my posts. People that I even ignored that they could be so kind and gentle while expressing themselves. Later in the evening, I received a phone call from one of my family members in Canada, and I found myself talking about that experience, and at the same time I had this precise notion about what I feel inside of my soul and that I try to share with other people around me. I mentioned to this cousin of mine my passion and respect for life and nature, for people, for all living species, and my connection with the other dimension that surrounds us. While doing it, I was confirming my deepest beliefs, the force, the energy that makes me live and helped me to understand, accept life and her beauty, finally integrate. I felt reassured about my private option to reject the ugly and the negative and finally staying in my world of beautiful people and beautiful things, refusing aggression on behalf of friendship, love, and compassion. I felt that inner peace and harmony that are irreplaceable and that neutralized my temporary loneliness, becoming apparent. I listened to words of comfort coming from people that read my book and told me that they changed lots of things in their lives for better after identifying themselves with my thoughts and feelings, those that they weren't able to express by written or spoken words. It's what I call a real fortune and a true reward for my personal achievement in life by sharing and caring for people in life. These were precious moments of my existence that made the now being more beautiful than yesterday's moments, proving that life understands us while being respected by our humbleness, by our love, devotion, and surrender. The other day, while on the train to Luxembourg, I started to note these notions about time that expresses what I feel about this perception of mine. We shouldn't accelerate time, the time of our existence. Time has its own time and travels at speed of light. We can only catch our own time, the time that time gave us to live. It is impossible to measure time as it is infinitive and eternal. To gauge the speed of time is also a mere pretension of the human being, still expressing his will to understand about the time of his existence. As Eric Burdon sang on his title, Out of Nowhere, quote, "Some people are living against time while others have all time to live. It's like loneliness," when he says, quote, "You have to be alone before you meet other people." By accepting the time that time gave us to live, we'll be able to feel our segments of time, the ones that we occupy, and finally translates who we are and what we represent in the middle of this whole complex and beautiful thing called life. After all, time is life and we all make part of it. Contradicting or fighting against time is renouncing our time of existence while missing it. We can make our own time last longer or simply forget it and get older without living it. It's true that we cannot fight against time, but this is also a reason to appreciate it in a different way, the time that life gave us to live, and try not to waste it. Living our personal time implies the love for living every minute as if it would be the only one, a way to profit from our existence after all. Some time of our lives is spent while thinking about things that don't have the significance that we put on them while creating our obstacles and barriers, the demons that are reigning in our spirits. Other times, we create necessities that only exist in our minds and don't match the real context of the moment. By doing that, we just skip time, the time of our existence, the one that we wouldn't be able to recover anymore, and we just become older, missing precious moments, missing our lives. Our individual time will stay engraved on the universal time, making part of its memories and becoming eternal. Several times I find myself thinking that we might be mere figures with a soul, with a purpose that the Creator gave to our existence. It's certain that everything we do will eternally stay engraved in our matrix, in our souls, everything good and bad, beautiful and ugly, our feelings of friendship and love, even hate. A classic science fiction movie that I have to mention, and that deals with the subject, existential time, is Blade Runner. This film is based on a book by Philip K. Dick, a science fiction novelist, and puts in evidence the existential issues that are connected to genetic manipulation to create an immortal species. The conflict between body and spirit is very present, along with the exact notion about fighting against time as a result of being aware of our final moment. This movie also reveals that a soul is given to every living species, even if human beings genetically manipulate them, and at the same time bringing them the presence of feelings and emotions along with intelligence. I read the other day on a post from a Facebook timeline that spreads spiritual messages coming from ancestral African communities that claim that every single birth matches a rebirth from our ancestors, and I believe so. I feel in my soul that we were born to be always learning about our existence while living the time of our lives. Maybe we have to return to this dimension the number of times we need to reach a personal understanding that will lead us to a collective consciousness as the ultimate solution to attain a global path that will allow our species to evolve in society. It is by sharing and caring for each other that we will be able to reach that spiritual path which I consider as the final purpose of the Creator, the reason why we are living. As we all make part of Him and by evolving in a spiritual way, we are consolidating His well-being, His happiness along with ours. By sharing and caring, by helping each other, we'll change social systems that matched a period in society and were adapted to the reigning collective awareness of those moments. Political and economical systems will also change as a result of this evolution, as society will refuse to accept injustice and discrimination along with greed and corruption. Religion will be practiced in a different perspective, since the communion of understanding will change its philosophy regarding a collective vision, a new consciousness, and approach to our spiritual reality. The moments and the now can affect our existence. The weather influences us by becoming happy or sad, even depressed, which reveals the existing link between life and nature and our souls. We feel joy in our hearts while catching the heat brought by the sun, by the light of nature. We receive the energy of that source of life that makes us surmount lots of obstacles in our lives by its interference in our psychological and physical condition. The only thing that represents, it is what it is life herself. The other things that happen in our lives are the result of our personal options and choices, as they're what we wanted them to be. We used to say that animals have no soul, no spirit, but I am convinced that it is not true. It's a fact that the animal world works in different ways than ours, but there is the presence of feelings in their lives as well. The only difference between us human beings and them is the way to behave, the way to react to those feelings, as after all they respond in the moment, the now. This behavior leads to momentary feelings, and while experiencing them they profit every minute of them. They address us their friendship and love when sharing our existence, but they can also leave us the next minute without posing any questions. Somehow, human beings behave the same way, one of the reasons why we are not so different after all. The other day I was talking to this Portuguese neighbor of mine in the bus, and there was a moment when he started talking about destiny. He put in doubt the fact that destiny would be a mere illusion of the human beings, as we can always decide for ourselves, and I completely agree. At that point, and knowing that he is a very religious person, I mentioned to him that God gave us the choice to decide about our lives. Also knowing that he works in the domain of computer engineering, I compared this religious illusion to a mere act of programming a computer. Science proved that we have a genetic core that defines our matrix, but it's for sure that we also have a spiritual one that matches the universe, which matches creation herself. I told him that maybe that this joint matrix has its program, which implies subroutines for each one of us. If we decide to follow one of those different ways that are programmed in our lives and are nothing but options and choices, we'll find ourselves accomplishing with what is written in several Bibles as destiny, but expressed in a different language, which is programming. No matter what way we decide, our destinies are already written, in spite of leaving us that option to choose our personal subroutine, the one that makes part of that individual matrix. As there is a purpose for everything in life, I'm certain that the Creator has a master plan. Memories can make the moment, can make the now. Memories always stay in the segments of time of our lives and will always be present in some moments of our existence. Sometimes we live precious minutes, even seconds, but we don't give them the right value. Later on in our lives, we'll remember it, and we'll regret what we missed, left, ran far away from while we were still in time to make them last. The difference between living and existing is to be able to feel every moment without burning it. We spend a significant part of our lives dissociated from the real time that we have to live and wasting a great part of it. The now is constantly building our future. Age is related with time, with the moments, and some people claim that the whole process of getting old is nothing but the result of our nonconformity about our end by the fact of being aware of it, though constantly being measured by our time of existence. Age is connected with time, and that notion is engraved in our minds, in our souls. Still, some people live through time without being aware of how fast time can fly. I was one of those people, and when I finally looked back, I saw 60 years already gone as if they were mere 60 days. This whole behavior also has to do with the different realities that are living in our minds, as if we love all our moments in an intense way while enjoying them. Time flies without our awareness. People who are just living and not appreciating their moments find time harder to burn, as they simply don't enjoy the time that was given to them to live. Every one of us crosses awkward moments in our lives. It doesn't matter if we are young or old, as there is always a moment that makes us pose some questions about our existence. In 1988, I was still living in Portugal and had lots of questions about these existential issues. I guess that when we are young, we look at obstacles in a different perspective, sometimes making us stronger due to the force of youth, but other times making us feel weak and unhopeful. Finally, we are all obliged to learn with our victories and defeats, all those good and bad experiences that make part of life, and everything becomes incredibly rich at the same time as we are led to conclusions to be able to choose our road. Within my ups and downs, I wrote the following poem that I tried to translate from Portuguese in the most accurate way I could. This poem matches a sad period of my life, as my father had just passed away in Sweden after enduring a terminal disease. At 27 years old, I had to take him to Stockholm, and when I came back, I had to pay a high price in emotional and psychological terms because of that tragic experience. The moments in the now brings us happiness, harmony and joy, but also sufferance and pain, even misery and sadness. It's as if our lives were nothing but a boat sailing on high sea with all those ups and downs that make part of the ocean of life. We just have to go along with the waves and try to survive, try to understand, and finally accept it the best way we can. We are forced to live the extremes of life, assist to the death of the dearest people, to surmount all the adversities and profit from the good moments that we can share with our family and friends. Society is made of extremes of happiness and sadness, richness and poorness and so on, and we have to find our place in the middle of all these contexts. Even the rich people have their ups and downs, their existential issues to solve themselves as any one of us, which means that we are not so different as that. But within all this, there is always hope that something will change for the better, if not for the better then to something else, something that can bring us the motivation and the will to keep on stepping further and living according to with our dreams. Finally, according to with who we are and what we represent. I am persuaded that we all pose the same questions in certain moments of our lives, independently from the degree of acceptance or sufferance of each person. Some will react in a different way, their personal way of expressing what they feel, others going away and finding their personal world to escape reality. I always expressed what I feel to my family and friends, which I think was the best way for them to understand me as I am, what I feel, even what I resent. The Moments and the Now. Written by Carlos Pacheco, www.diaryofthoughts.com.